welcome to the Hoel Roofing and Remodeling podcast. Today, special guest is Miss Baker. I'm going to call you Miss Baker, even though you're Miss Sliger now, so forgive me. I need to change your name in my phone, so I do that. But the reason we're having Miss Sliger on the podcast is she's a local, she's a local teacher at the high school, but are you technically in the business department?
Yes, I'm in the business department.
And she is the best, and I mean this. I'm not saying it because she's sitting here with the classes that we sponsored in the personal finance for the Dave Ramsey curriculum. She believes in it. She's believed in it for years, so it comes across when she teaches at a whole nother level. We have other teachers that teach it, and I'm thankful for that. But the belief that she has in the system is paying huge dividends in our community already. So I just brought her on. She's going to introduce herself, and then we're just going to talk about the impact that the class has had on her life, and more importantly on the students' life. So in the grand scheme of things, it's gonna impact our local communities.
Well, thank you so much. That's such a big honor, and so thank you for saying that. My family has followed Dave Ramsey for as long as I can remember. And so I did Financial Peace Junior and all of those things growing up. So when I actually went and did my student teaching, I took, my parents taught Dave Ramsey at my church. And so I actually took the church curriculum when I was student taught at my previous school, and I actually used that curriculum. And then when I came to Rushville, I was going to use that. And it's a little different, and it's for adults. It's not for teenagers. And so then I got a special email one day that said that we were actually in Ramsey classroom and that we were sponsored by Hoel Roofing and Remodeling, and I was so excited because I knew exactly what it was, and it was a high school version for my students. And so instead of the 7 baby steps, it talks about the 5 foundations, and so it's on a level that the students actually know. So that's kind of my introduction to Dave Ramsey and how I got introduced to that. But yeah, I'm Mrs. Sliger, newly Mrs. Sliger. Just got married December 31st, so just a couple weeks ago. And so I keep introducing myself as Miss Baker, and the kids are like, Mrs. Sliger, Mrs. Sliger. And I'm like, who are you talking to? So it's been a really fun transition, but very big time in my life and financial time in my life as well. So it's fun to go through those things and be able to talk to the kids about it as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the real life experiences with the kids. And I will say this, like, we sponsored the class, and the team at Dave Ramsey was like, you know, be interactive, like be more than just writing a check once a year. Right. And, you know, so I reached out and I was like, hey, I want to come in and talk to the class. And me and Emily always start the class like, hey, I know when I was your age, I wouldn't want some 30-some-year-old person in here like telling me, hey, do this or do that. But I've always enjoyed it. It really, like, it's something myself and Emily and look forward to, because some days running the business, you're like, what the hell are we doing this for? You know, you know, the see an impact, to be able to give back. You just never know the lives that you're going to touch doing that. So, you know, it's always fun for us, and it gets more buy-in from our team when we can take Adam to shoot the videos or Bobby Ann to take pictures or whatever. Like, they see what we're doing here, what he's doing on social media. Like, it gives him a bigger purpose than just trying to sell more roofs or more siding jobs. And of course we have to do that to pay the bills. I get that. But we want to come across as something way bigger, it's way bigger than us selling roofs or siding or gutters. So I guess to share, you know, some of the struggles and some of the rewards of teaching that, because one thing that I always say when I'm in the class is like, hey guys, I'm well aware that your parents may struggle with money or may do some of these things, and we don't want you going home like, hey mom, you're stupid, you still have a car payment. But we also don't want to see them trapped in the same thing either, and show some grace, because I grew up in a household that struggled with some things, and that's what made me attractive to the Dave Ramsey principles. So
Yeah, and vice versa. It is so nice for you to come into the classroom because I feel like I'm the crazy woman, you know, talking about live this debt-free life. And I always tell them, like, yes, I have a very radical point of view when it comes to finances, but I'm also debt-free. And so I feel like you can either listen to those people who are broke and in debt and keeping up with the Joneses, and listen to them say that you're crazy. But at the end of the day, who are you really wanting to mimic? And so I feel like I'm this radical person sometimes. And so then when you come in and you're just as radical, it gives like validity to my teaching and what I've said. And so I love that, because it's not just like, oh, Miss Baker is, this crazy lady. Other people are doing it too. And I think that anytime that we can introduce kids and say, like, there is a new normal and a new, wave of financial peace that people are wanting. And I think it's because our parents did such a bad job. What's fun is that it's a semester-long course right now. So since this is January, we just started a brand new class. And so today we did the whole what is normal in America. And so it's very fun to be on here today and you ask that question, because normal is broke. And the reality of it is 75% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And so you have to remember that when you're talking to these students, that 3/4 of them are living paycheck to paycheck. Like, you're talking to real people. You're not talking like about, oh, somebody over in Montana or California. Like, these families are going through this right now. 75% of them are living paycheck to paycheck. One of the Dave Ramsey introduction kind of activities that you do is you divide the class up into what percentage of them will win with money, which of them will be normal, just by statistics. Right. And that was kind of shocking. So for one person out of the entire 20 plus class to stand up and say, you will be the only one who's winning with money, and everybody else sitting down is probably not going to win with money if you don't take this class seriously. And then, over 74% of them are then going to be normal and broke. And that's just it's a very hard reality to get through their heads. But I think doing activities like that, where you have them stand up and then realize that, oh, this amount of people are actually broke, is kind of changing and mind-opening for them. But at the same time, they're 16 years old, yep, and they're indestructible. They're superhuman at that age. And so they don't understand. And I think that it is incredibly unfair that we ask 17-year-olds what they want to do for the rest of their life. I think that it's incredibly unfair that we ask 17-year-olds to sign pieces of paper that are going to get them in debt that they don't understand and don't know. And so the purpose of my class is to just get them introduced to vocabulary and financial terms, and just to be able to be advocates for themselves. It's only a semester, so I can't go as deep as I'd like to, but we always talk about at the very beginning of the semester that you can either dig yourself a hole and then have to dig yourself out of that hole, or you can take this class seriously and you can start winning with money right now, today. And so that's really the purpose, and kind of what I like to get across from them is, you're going to want to win with money at some point. But are you going to wait until you're in this deep, dark hole to get out? Or are you going to start now and actually take this seriously? And one of the biggest quotes in chapter 1 of our curriculum is that financial freedom is 80% behavior and 20% knowledge. And I believe that. And I have people who get an A in my class, and they struggle with money in 2-3 years, and I see them go buy that 2020 Charger, and they have a $200 a month payment, and they're never all those kinds of things. And then so it's not about getting an A in the class, it's about actually learning the things and applying them to your life.
Well, and like I say in the class, like, they're not going to listen to everything we say. No. Unfortunately. We all made stupid mistakes and didn't listen to parents, mm-hmm, or mentors or teachers or whatever. But I always say, like, don't forget about this. Like, come back and revisit it. And I was actually talking to a vendor that we're getting ready to sign up and start using last night, and Dave Ramsey got brought up. And it's kind of crazy because, like, the true Dave Ramsey disciples, like, there's an instant trust.
Oh, yeah.
Like, instantly.
Yeah.
And, we were talking, and, and I told him, I was like, we've built this business completely debt-free. The building we're in, we wrote a check for. Mm-hmm. Did it take some patience? Yes. Thank God for my lovely wife, because I didn't have it. I could take you by a building in Rushville that I wanted to buy, that she pretty much had to threaten divorce for me not to buy it. And it's falling down already. And we looked at it 18 months ago. Mm-hmm. Literally part of it fell down.
That's crazy.
And every time I drive by, I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one thing, delayed gratification. Dave talks about it. It's more than just money. And what I also try to tell people, like the Dave Ramsey principle stuff, is like, you know, he doesn't want you to live, you know,
riding a donkey to work
for the rest of your life. Like, you know, I just bought Emily a really nice truck.
You did? You talked about that the other day.
You know, but we've been together 12 years, and we've lived the Dave Ramsey lifestyle for 12 years. Like we're overnight success now. You know what I mean? But it's like, it's fun because now we're on the other side of that, and now we can pour into a team, and, you know, we can do things, in the business where, like, we just had a girl, her dad passed away, and like we gave her the amount of time that she needed off. And yeah, she was missed here, but we could cover what was going on. And I didn't have to worry like, oh man, can I still pay her this week? Like, no, it was like, you write the check.
Right.
You know, Adam last year, he went to Mahoney Valley Christian camp and worked there all week. Some people would be like, well, I'm not paying you, you weren't here. I'm like, absolutely not. And you're serving, you're giving back to our community. Like, you know, awesome. Thank you for doing that. You know, and it's a small token to be able to not use time up or anything like that, you know. But, you know, that's the one thing with the class. And the crazy thing is, we're going to get into sharing some stories on, like, the impact that we're already seeing just a few years into this. But there's so much of, you know, it snowballs.
Oh, yes.
So much. And, like, wasn't even trying to do a Dave Ramsey like tag there with the debt snowball, but it's just,
I noticed it.
It's accumulation of stuff. And, you know, and I'll say one thing, we've been fortunate as a company. We have a few sales reps that work for us that are in their mid-20s, and they're the most conservative financially people. Like, it's awesome. Crazy. Like, because like, that's one thing I say when we were hiring a sales rep, they're all straight commission. And I'm like, you're not going to make any money the first month. Like, hardly, you know. And yeah, I hope you get a deal, but, you know, you can make really good money in a couple of months. And we hired one that had 12 months of bills already saved up. He's like, nope, that's fine.
That's awesome.
And, you know, and we've got 3 guys in particular, younger guys that they're hard workers, but they're very conservative, but they're so generous too, you know, on calling into the office and, hey, Ellie, what do you want? I'm at Taco Bell, or, hey, do you want a coffee or something? You know what I mean? Like, it's so cool to see that just in our team. But I also look back and realize it's the culture that we built. Yes. And we're going to attract that, because I've been in other roofing companies and seen sales teams that are all made up to the guys that they have to sell a job today because they can't make their truck payment next week.
Right.
You know, and it cracks me up because these guys are like, yeah, I'll drive your truck, boss, because, you know, I've got a 02, you know, Chrysler that is a piece of crap that, like, I never even have to drive it anymore. You know, one kid, he gave his car away the other day for somebody to haul the scrapyard because he was tired of it sitting around, because he's like, I'm just driving your truck, boss, you know. and that's kind of cool, you know. And, you know, we just want to continue to, you know, that's the entire point of the Dave Ramsey stuff. It's not just to live like, you know, his slogan is live like no one else so you can live and give like no one else. And fortunately, after me and Emily doing this for 12 years, we're what he calls baby step 7, where we're building wealth and we're giving a ton of it away. And I know there's going to be haters when people see the truck, you know, but they don't realize how much money and how much we gave away last year, not just buy a nice truck for somebody, you know. Right. So I'm going to start with a story that hit me probably a year and a half ago on, you know, just because me and Emily go into your classroom, we talk to these kids. I'm getting so old that I don't really hardly know any. I know the parents, you know. And it seems like every time there's somebody in that class that we know from one way or another. And, you know, and it's always funny whenever we hear, like, we always seem to go out to a customer's house right after we visit, and they're like, hey, my son or my nephew, and they're talking about it at, like, Christmas.
Isn't that exciting?
Like, man, apparently they didn't really have much to talk about. You know what I mean? If you're talking about these people that came in there. But about a year and a half ago, I was at the Casey General Store, and we were having a team lunch, and it was catered in by a supplier, and the cups were forgotten. And I was like, guys, go ahead and start getting your food. I'm going to run over there. I'm going to get cups. So I jump out of our real sexy Ford Transit van that's got our logo and name all over it. And a few vehicles down, there's a young man gets out and kind of like acknowledged me. And I'm in a big hurry. I'm always in a big hurry. So I just kind of gave him the head nod. And I went there and got what I got. And then he was getting what he was getting. And then he was behind me in line, didn't really say anything. And I went to put my cups up there, and he's like, hey, I got his. And I'm like, what? It's like, no, I'm prideful. Like,
right.
Like, I'll buy your lunch, but it's my pride. I'm not going to let you buy my lunch kind of thing, you know. And I was like, no, I got it. He's like, no, I got it. I'm like, who are you? And I don't remember his name because that's the headspace that I was in. But he's like, you sponsor the financial foundations class at the high school. I've taken it, and it's already, you know, I've already seen great results with it pretty much. And he's like, I just want to be able to, you know, to pay it forward. And like, I was choked up. I walked out and I looked up at the big man upstairs and I was like, all right, God, sometimes the smallest, stupidest things like slow me down to open my eyes in like what we're really on this earth to do, you know. And all I did was I thanked him. I shook his hand and I said, well, apparently you know me better than I know you. So if you ever need anything, let me know, you know. And, you know, I wish I remembered the kid's name. I'm horrible with names, you know, but that was a huge win that we had that. It's just, like I say, sometimes like you just go through the motions every day and you wonder what you're doing. And especially as a teacher, because we were all didn't respect our teachers near enough. And I felt like I was raised by a good dad that disciplined me very well. And in high school, especially, you're a jerk, you know, you're mad about this or that. I was just talking to a lady this morning and she was talking about, you know, she's got a 14-year-old right now and always eye rolls, always like, you don't know what you're talking about. So what, cause I know you've shared some stories with me, like what have been some things like that's been shared with you that's kind of been like, man, I needed to hear that today to kind of keep chugging along.
And to your point, it's so much more than money and how to control your money. It's really how to control your life.
Yes.
And once you learn patience with your money, that goes everywhere, you know, with you. And you have that patience with your spouse or with your friends or with your parents or whoever it might be. And so I love that part about the Dave Ramsey curriculum. And I had a very similar experience. Teaching is hard, like you just said. That's exactly where I was going after your story. And I think sometimes we wonder why we do it. And I was in a season just a couple months ago where I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I could be home. I could, you know, not have to deal with this drama after hours and grading papers and all these things. And I was just really questioning, and I was praying about it really hard. And I was like, God, can you please show me some signs? Are you pushing me out of this? Or is this why I'm here? Am I here to be a part of the solution, or are you saying, Kristin, this is time to move on? And so I went to Taco Bell, which I don't normally do. I don't normally get drinks out because they're so expensive. But I love the Baja Blast Zero. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to drive through this Taco Bell. I'm going to pay my $3 for this Baja Blast Zero because I just need a pick-me-up. And so I went through Taco Bell. I just got a Baja Blast Zero. Didn't even get a cheese roll-up or anything. And I come to the window. And one of my former personal finance students was working. And I hand my card to him. And he goes, Miss Baker? And I said, hi, yeah, it's me. You know, because I'm never in Taco Bell. And he said, I got you. And I said, no, you don't have me. I was like, it's a $3 drink. I can pay for my drink. And he said, you taught me how to be good with money. I'm good with my money. He said, if they say anything, I'll pay it for you. And at that time in my life, that $3 Baja Blast Zero changed my whole outlook for the rest of the semester and on teaching. And it seems like God gives you those moments exactly when you're needing them. And so I thought the Baja Blast Zero was my pick-me-up, but it ended up being that moment that he said, no, you taught me how to be good with my money, and so I am. One of the biggest things that we kind of already talked about, 17-year-olds trying to decide what they're doing for the rest of their life. I think that's unfair. And so you actually sent me something on Facebook that one of my students had said about going to college debt-free and how they were going to go to college debt-free and how she changed her plans basically because of the class and realizing, and that's one of the best parts is I have juniors and seniors a lot of the time. And so those seniors come in and the very first thing I ask them is, what's the plan? What are we doing? Because planning is the number one key to financial success. So I'm like, what's the plan? What are we doing here? And she told me this big plan that she had for her life and everything. And I was like, that doesn't really sound like you. Like, why is that the plan? You know? And sometimes it just takes an adult asking that. And I think that these kids don't have enough adults asking them that. Is, okay, can you tell me why? Like, I'm not being bad, and I would love for you to tell me why, and then I understand and I realize I'm not asking why in a rude way, just, could you tell me why? And she didn't have a reason why she was doing that, and I'm like, well, as I've gotten to know you, you know, this sounds more like you. Why is this the plan? And she totally had changed her plan by the end of the semester and decided to go to college debt-free instead. And knowing that she is going to be financially set up for freedom after college now, I mean, brings tears to your eyes, you know, because it's like, that wouldn't have happened if she wouldn't have signed up for that class. And so it's just exciting. And you hear stuff every day about kids buying cars and buying different cars now and going home and telling their parents about things that we talked about and their parents calling them stupid and the stuff stupid. And for the kids to then have the financial knowledge to say, no, you don't get to say that's stupid. This is why it's not stupid, and this is why I'm doing it. And again, why am I listening to you who's broke?
Right.
Instead of like listening to these proven things. And so I'm never trying to get students to disrespect their parents. Right. And I never want students to go home and tell their parents that they're wrong or anything like that. But you do have to start thinking for yourself when you're in high school, and you can't just follow in your parents' footsteps, especially when those footsteps aren't always in the right direction.
Well, and you know, like I said to the class every time I've spoken to any of them is like, you know what, they may follow in their parents' footsteps for a couple of years, and then they may look up like, what the heck am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, and then, you know, all right, what did Miss Baker teach us? Like, you know, and then grab a hold of it, you know. And the crazy thing is, you know, we had a lot of people think that we were crazy when we did it. Our story is I was laid off not while we were on our honeymoon, but the Friday that we were going on our honeymoon, the company I was working for got a certified letter that the biggest contract that I was technically working on was getting removed from them. They were losing it, and it kind of the career in the field I was in, like some of it kind of trickled away because there was stuff that we were in the middle of a 6-month project or a 4-month project, so they couldn't just take it away next week. And I got laid off in February of that year, but we had already started this. And the pathetic thing is, we could pay what little bills we had on my wife's income, and she was a medical assistant at the Connersville Hospital. She wasn't making any money. It was pathetic what little they paid her for what she did, you know. But it helps so much, like not having that stress. And you know, and I say, like, the reason I'm so passionate about this was my dad and my biological mother. She left when I was 2, because they were getting divorced from just filing a bankruptcy. And so it's kind of always been, you know, a lot of times our mess is our message in the grand scheme of things. And, you know, that's just one thing that I saw. You know, my dad always provided. Like, we never went without.
Right.
But, you know, one day I was talking to a guy, and he said he was talking about me and another guy that had a roofing company, and the guy no longer has the roofing company, but he grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. And the guy said, the reason that you're going to be more successful there is because you woke up hungry or you went to bed hungry and you woke up cold. And I'm not saying that my dad didn't provide for me, but, you know, there's a lot of truth to that. Like, it's adversity, it's putting in the work. Like, you know, it's you have to, like, you know, we're not doing our kids any good of like babying them through absolutely everything. And especially when you're in high school, like, it's okay. Like, we always ask the class how many work, and I always like, hey, good job, keep that up. Like, that's a good thing. Like, I know some people are, no, you need to have the high school experience. It's like, well, you're pretty freaking close to reality of, having to pay your own way. So you might as well figure out that you don't want to work at Taco Bell for $8 an hour, $9 an hour, or whatever that is.
Right.
And I always say, like, there's nothing wrong with working at Taco Bell. Like, I'm glad you're working, but look, can you mow grass for $30 a yard and actually make $27 an hour doing that, or whatever that calculates out at, and it's always fun to watch the kids, because, like you said, like, you don't want them disrespecting their parents, but I've always been impressed on how engaged the kids are and how many questions they have. And, and I love picking on, like, the loudmouth, or the one that always has to be funny. And then, like, somebody like me and Emily show up and they're like quiet all the time. And I'm like, hey, wait a second. I heard you before class. You wouldn't shut up. So what question do you have? And that's just a lot of fun, just because you just never know. You never know, like, the impact that you're having, and especially as a teacher, I can't stress that enough. Like, Mr. Orm did so much for me in FFA that I look back now, like, man, he was teaching me that when he got on me about this or that, like, I didn't like him at that time, but now, like, there's a ton of respect there.
Right.
That, and now his influence on me is influencing this business. So, like, the influence that you're having on these kids, like, you're setting their kids and their grandkids up that will never know your name. Like, every conversation always ends up, every one of these podcasts end up bringing up either Dave Ramsey or in a combination of Revolt, and that's a mastermind group that I'm part of roofing owners. And one of our core values is legacy. Impact over income. There's absolutely nothing wrong with income. There's nothing wrong with making a lot of money, but, I think you always want to focus on the impact, because I've got a particular salesman here. He's got a 4-year-old stepson. Like, him working here is going to benefit his stepson's kids that possibly will never know my name, will never know who I am.
Right.
But the impact that we're having on him is going to have a direct impact on him. So, like, when days are hard, when you have to deal with crazy customers, or, you got to deal with drama because you got high school girls, like, rest assured, like, the work that you're doing, it doesn't go unnoticed, and it's always nice to have people, as a parent, having quality teachers teaching kids, because they are the future. And, you want stuff like the Dave Ramsey principles beat in these kids' heads. And then that's a bad word to say in today's culture, make it, oh, wow, Miss Baker beats the kids, So, but at the end of the day, it's just, it's what we need as a country and as a community. And, one of our guys that work for us, his girlfriend went through the class, and, like, she brought it up at a part of our interview process is we take that person and their significant other out for supper before we make the official hire. It's just something we stole from Dave Ramsey. Like, we don't want crazy in the building, and sometimes it's not the person working, it's their spouse, and she brought that up. And I think she took a year off of school to work, and then I believe she's just starting or getting ready to start going to college. And she's like, and one thing I always have Emily share, my wife, whenever she's visiting with classes, she went to Ivy Tech, and a lot of her friends went to IU, and she felt like she was missing out. And, now they still have student loan debt.
Right.
And, one thing that we don't talk about is 80% of the people aren't using their education within 5 years of graduating. So, like, why are we having these kids go into 100,000, 80,000, whatever in debt for something that they're not going to do? And I look at myself, like, the crazy thing is I wanted to do construction management in college, and I went for environmental engineering. And how many years later am I back into practically construction management? So, but I don't want to deter somebody. And I'm not saying that college isn't for everybody, and that's okay. But I'm not also saying college isn't for nobody, because I want my doctor very well trained.
Absolutely. My
nurses, whatever, but I just feel like whenever I was in school, it was like pushing university down your throat. Fortunately, my dad's like, hey, go to 2-year college, see what happens, and go from there. There's nothing wrong with more education. But there's also nothing wrong with an associate's degree because, now fortunately associate's degrees aren't looked down upon. No. When I went, it was like, oh, you're going to community college?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, and fortunately my stepmom worked at a college, so my tuition was free. With my wife, she didn't have any student loan debt. Her parents didn't make that much, so I remember she owed her mom $400 when she graduated college. So she practically went, she cash flowed it. And once again, I want to get that through kids' heads. They can cash flow college. Mm-hmm. It may not be Purdue, it may not be Ball State.
Right.
I'm not against Purdue, I'm not against Ball State, but go to what you can afford because in a few years it's not going to matter. There's not one person here that I've ever even asked for their transcript. I know Adam graduated from Ball State, I believe.
I did too. Chirp.
But and one of my now sales manager, Nick, he finished his bachelor's degree after he was in college when he started working for me, and he just wanted to finish it. I encouraged him. I said, go do it. It's okay. But there's people that don't have degrees, that work here. And when I'm talking to kids now, I'm like, show up on time, actually show up early, do what you're actually supposed to do, and be a team player. And that's way more important than a college certificate on most jobs, and it's just, normalize that it's okay to take a different path, have a plan. Like you say, have a plan. And like I tell kids, go work somewhere and find out, before you become whatever, see if you really want to do it. How many doctors, how many lawyers go through all that, and then they either want to quit or they end up quit doing it after they've got a degree and $500,000 in debt because they don't really want to do it, but they feel like they have to. So any other fun stories to share? I remember one time, I think somebody, you said, came up to you and had paid cash for a car, and you thought the entire time in class that they weren't freaking listening at all.
Oh, I forgot about that one. Yes. So you get all kinds of people in personal finance. You get some of the top students who personal finance by the book is a pretty easy class to pass, right? It's a very easy class to get a good grade in. And that's why I always tell them, you could get an A in here and still fail with money. And so you get those higher students who kind of just want a nice little grade bump. You get the middle of the road students who might have an interest. You have the students who their counselor just put them in there. And so you get all kinds of people in personal finance. And there was this one kid that I did not think listened one day. They turned in their papers and stuff. But when we had class discussions and everything, I was, they just weren't really in it. And then the semester after I had them, they came up to me in the hallway and they just had this smile on their face and said, Miss Baker, Miss Baker, Miss Baker. And I was like, what's up? And they said, I just wanted to let you know that I paid cash for my car. And it's the impact that you don't even know that you have that really makes the most impact on you then, and gives you that juice to keep flowing and say, okay, even the kid who I didn't think I got through to, took what I said. And that one little step of buying that first car with cash, knowing the ripple effect that has on their life, and not being upside down in their very first car is amazing. And so I looked at them and I said, you just made an amazing decision. And I said, and that is going to reap benefits for you for the future, for a long time. And I said, I am so proud of you. And that's another thing that kids today need to hear, that you're proud of them and that they're doing good and that they did something worth being proud of. And so I love whenever students come up and tell me about that. I've had students who have told me cars are a really big thing when you're in high school. And I had a student who their parent was going to get them a car and going to put them into debt, basically, because that's what parents do. And they went back and forth with their parents and they said, I'm not really interested in that. And they said, well, we want a car that'll get you through college and all that kind of stuff. And they were like, yeah, but I don't want to have debt to do it. And so they actually took the summer and waited the entire summer and worked all summer long. And then they came back in the fall and they said, Miss Baker, I saved enough money over the summer for my car. And now I have a used car, and it's a perfect car, and I waited, and I even got a better deal than I thought. And absolutely. That's what I always tell them, is that patience is the biggest thing, especially when it comes to buying a car, buying a home, all of those things, is to not say, I'm going to go get a car this weekend, because then that puts you in this box, and you have to figure out, and you have to pay for a car that maybe you can't afford, or you weren't planning on, or isn't as good as what you wanted. But if you take the time to really look for a nice deal on a good car, like, you're going to end up being happier in the long run. And so, yeah, I just, story after story about kids, and especially the ones that you don't think that you make an impact on, are really rewarding.
Well, and you said something, and this is funny because this was kind of brought up in the last podcast we shot earlier today, was you said kids need to hear that you're proud of them. Like, we all need to hear positive of, like, what you're doing. It's that positive mindset. It's that, reassuring. And, it's something that I'm trying to be very intentional about this year with my family, my wife, my kids, my team. Like, as the leader, like, sometimes I have to say, hey, this is unacceptable, and it's not always like, hey, nice
pat on the back.
It's not always
trophies.
And I don't want, like, we live in this woke culture, and it's like, there's nothing wrong with loving your team, in a positive way, and there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, like, we have a problem here, but one thing I just kind of it hit me that I need to be more intentional with, like I said, with everybody. But it's got to start for me as a dad and as a husband, like, at home, because by far that's the most important. Them are the four most important people that I'm leading. Like, I love my team and I'm here for my team, but I've got to make sure I'm leading my wife and my kids well first, because that's going to be a ripple effect, when we come in here. But it's you sit back and you watch that, and it's like, it's how you, encourage someone, believe in them. Like, you believe in that student that they can go buy that car debt free. And then, you put the belief in them that they can buy their next one debt free. And that's the thing. Like, when the reason that we got into putting it in the high school was I was tired of, I led several, I think 12 or 14 financial peace classes. And I heard it 100 times from adults, like, well, I wish I'd have known this when I was younger. And I was like, okay, but you can implement it right now.
Yes.
And then, or, one thing that we always heard was, well, you can't do that with kids. Like, you can be debt free with first getting married. You can't do that with kids. Or, then I hear as a business owner, you can't do that owning the business. And it's like, I love proving people wrong, but it's like, and that's the worldly part of me that I gotta have, a gut check with the good Lord every once in a while. But, at the end of the day, it's like, no, actually you can. And then it's going to continue to snowball. And I was actually talking to a vendor last night, and we were talking about how him getting his finances in straight several years back led him to opening that business. It's no different than what Emily and I did. And it's led us to opening this. So, like, how many other people, like, if we help them not even get in that rat race, like, can they go start a business? Or, they're better team members when they don't have that stress. And I see that a lot with sales reps because of being straight commission and stuff like that. But it's like, it's just, you're better off. Like, and you're going to be a better whatever parent, kid. And like I said, I understand with kids, like, there's that uphill fight of, like, the parent maybe not totally believing in it, and that'll be cool to see, like, once because I've heard some parents before, like, tell their kids, like, don't ever get into debt, and it's like, well, you and me both know, like, what you do is repeated way more than what you say, unfortunately, but it is always fun with the kids, of just hearing them stories and seeing that, because like I said, like, you believe in them. And, we have people reach out, Facebook message, like, hey, like, I'm tired of living paycheck to paycheck. Like, what's the trick? And it's like, guys, it's really not a trick. It's the 7 baby steps. Like, you have to be disciplined. Delayed gratification. You just have to do it, and it's always cool. Or, like, some people will come up and tell me after they've done it, like, I wish they'd tell me while they're doing it, because I would check in and be like, hey, if you need, you're not crazy. If you need some support, like, reach out, because like you're gonna have months that it's like, oh, am I really doing this? Or you're gonna, if people that don't believe in it, they're not going to encourage you. Like Dave always says, hey, if you have a shopping problem and you're trying to get out of debt, you shouldn't go shopping with your girlfriend that you've shopped the last 5 years with. Like, love your girlfriend, but just don't go shopping with her. You know, so stuff like that. It's just it's always fun to see that, but continue to instill that into kids, because like I said, like it's. And we haven't gotten a message for a while, but we actually had a couple come and meet with Emily one day here at the office.
Yeah.
Like they reached out and they're like, hey, and I mean, they walked in, and I give them kudos, because the husband I went to school with.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty prideful, and I don't know if I could have put myself in his shoes, but they came in and they're like, here's our budget and here's where all this money's going. And they were making a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they didn't have much or anything at the end of the month. So like, I don't know, it's just, just continue to do that, because it's paying dividends in them kids' lives. It's going to pay dividends in their kids' lives. And you never know like who you're inspiring. Like you're going to inspire other teachers that, may start like, well, maybe she isn't as crazy, because I'm sure some of them think that
oh,
class,
they think I'm crazy.
yes, and it's like, once again, like Dave says, like, do you take financial advice from a broke person? Do you take, shop advice from somebody that cut their finger off running the saw? So, and what stinks with social media is it's a highlight reel.
And it looks like people have things.
Yes.
But that's not the truth.
yes, and it's like, what do you really want? And, and also you get around friends, and, them people will like, I don't know, you just don't know who you're influencing. And like, I always go back to Revolt, but I sponsor the class. Like one thing we talk about is like, how are we doing our legacy? What does our legacy look like in our life? And we share that with other roofing owners. And I believe at least 3 other roofing owners have reached out and sponsored their local high schools just because I talk about it. And like, there's one guy in particular, his business is probably 10 times the size mine is. And like, he sent me a Facebook message and just to let me know. And I was like, wow.
That's awesome.
Little old Bob here in Rushville, like, like just talking about it and my excitement of like helping the kids and telling the stories, it sparked him to do that. And like, once again, what kind of impact is he going to have on them kids and them lives, that I could never reach that. And, it wasn't a big financial burden for him. Like it was a drop in a bucket most likely, but he still like did it. Yeah. And another guy, he sponsored his entire county, and he's in Florida. Shout out to my brother Brian Ward. That and the really cool thing is like a big influencer in the roofing space like got wind of it, and he made a post about it. And my friend and me and Emily's friends with him and his wife. He commented, and he's like, thanks for Bob for bringing that to my attention.
That's
so that
awesome.
was kind of cool, because once again, like how many kids are being affected by that that I'll never know, like, and that's the thing. And, and one thing that I want to continue to do is continue to support more schools around our area. And I'm hoping that eventually, like, hopefully you can, encourage another business teacher, like, hey, look into this, or if you ever know of, I don't know how much you associate with other teachers like that outside of the school, but like we're always willing to sponsor another class, most definitely, just because of the impact of, we don't know that it's going to have, so, but yeah. So, what else are you involved with at the school, besides teaching Dave Ramsey's principles to our kiddos?
So I am the assistant cheerleading coach at the high school. I've coached other sports and done other sponsorships in the past, but with getting married and taking on bigger roles in different things, that's my main thing right now. But I've been junior class sponsor and key club sponsor, and I've coached softball and all kinds of different things. But yeah, taking a nice step back here very, very recently. And I think intentionality is very important, like you were talking about earlier, and I'm trying to be more intentional with my time and quality over quantity. And so cheerleading is my main thing now that I sponsor at the high school. So
nice. So were you a cheerleader in high school?
I was a cheerleader in high school, yeah. And so I was going to be an accountant was my plan after high school. My mom is a forensic accountant, and so I just always wanted to do that, and I thought it was cool, and I wanted to do fraud audits and all kinds of things. So I went to Ball State actually for business education, but decided I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do accounting. Business education was I didn't think I actually wanted to do it. It was just a nice pairing, and so I was like, oh, I'll apply with that, and then I'll change it anyway. Everybody changes it. And at Ball State, you're a pre-business student, so it didn't really matter what my major was as long as I was in business. And so anyway, I was going for accounting, and I did a couple of accounting internships over the summer and realized that sitting in a basement for 10 hours a day on Excel was not using the gifts that God had given me. And I could make a lot of money. I could work a 4-day work week. I could be successful by the outside person's perspective, but I was not being fulfilled. I was making no impact. I mean, I was making an impact. I just didn't feel like I was making an appropriate impact for what God had given me. And so I prayed and prayed and prayed about it, and he said, be a teacher. And I kind of did a little Jonah and the whale moment and said, no, thanks. And prayed about it, and I was like, I'll just wait for another answer. And he said, no, you're going to be a teacher. And no, I'll pass. And I finally said, okay, I'll listen. I'll graduate with my business degree, and I will go to school for longer so that I can be a teacher. So I actually ended up then doing a transition to teach program, and part of my thought process when I did that was, okay, I'm going to be able to be a better mother eventually whenever I'm off with my kids for their breaks. I've always wanted to be able to focus on my home, and teaching with the breaks that you have off and just the schedule that you have and stuff was really important to me. But cheerleading was also put on my heart. To be a cheerleading coach that cared about the kids and saw cheerleading both as a sport and a tradition. And I think that cheerleading, if you know anything about cheerleading, at every school looks very different. And so to kind of be that light and do that. So that was actually kind of my plan. Then once I became a teacher was hopefully to become a cheerleading coach one day. So kind of full circle. It's kind of like everything's clicking, and it's like, oh, God knows what he's doing. And silly me for thinking that he didn't. So it's been a fun ride, and it's really fun to see it kind of all clicking now and getting to where I thought I might be eventually.
Well, and especially like young girls and that high school cheerleaders, like they need a lot of love, and they need a lot of encouragement of like, what choices they're making.
Right.
Unfortunately at that age, a lot of girls are looking for outside reinsurance from boys, and boys don't have the right intentions in mind at that age, so doing that is massive too, and any time that we can pour back into the kids, I mean, they're the future of what's coming up, like as a teacher or as a team member for me, or as a small business owner, and like one reason, like I just want to get this out as much because like I know I watch businesses fail, especially in the roofing space, every day, and a lot of it has to do with finances. The number one cause for divorce, hello, look at me. Why were my parents separated?
Right.
Finances. Like, there's two things if we could fix. If we could fix the man problem in this country and the finance problem, like that would change a lot, and it's just, we, like, truly, like, we need strong men, and I'm not like, a woman can't do that. No, it's not that. It's just, it's the man's job to lead.
Right.
And, you can ask my wife, like, my wife is a hard-ass worker. Man, there I am cussing again. But, it's all right. The first podcast we did with my wife, she said the first inappropriate thing before me, and I couldn't believe it. So, yeah. So she said kicking the nuts, and I was like, I lost it. But, my wife is a very hard worker, but she'll even tell you, like, hey, I'm glad that you lead this. She's there, she's right there. But seriously, like, as a country, like, if men would fix their problems and take care of their issues, we would be better husbands. We would be better fathers. And, like I said, finances is a big part that can fix a lot of things. Like,
oh yes,
no matter what. So that's why, like, it's such a huge part of our country, and and our government sure doesn't really care about finances. Look at the trillions in debt that we go practically almost daily now. So, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, what you're doing is very important. Teaching the financial class, coaching, if it's softball, if it's cheerleading, and of course, now that you're a wife, like, you're stepping into another whole different role. Sooner than later, I assume you'll be a mother, which is another even awesome calling, So I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come and chat with us. I always enjoy coming to talk to the kids. Do you have any closing remarks? Anything you feel is what's on your heart?
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm so thankful. Like I said, I always wanted to incorporate Dave Ramsey into my curriculum, and personal finance is my favorite class to teach. And so getting that email 4 years ago as a first-time teacher was amazing, and it helped that I knew Dave Ramsey, obviously, and wanted to incorporate that. But the Ramsey classroom curriculum is amazing for high school students, and just having those resources available for our kids is life-changing for them. And so I can see what you're doing in your business, and it is rippling and rippling and rippling and putting impact over income. And I love that statement. I'm going to steal that.
I stole it from somebody. So
okay,
yes.
Good. I'll just steal that one. And not making an income for selfish reasons, and to really make it for impact instead. And I see that. I think kids can see that, and it's making a difference in our community. And that's what I think my main goal is as a teacher and as a person of this community. And it's a goal of yours as well. And so I think we're doing it. I just want to keep doing it. Let's keep rolling.
Absolutely. Like you say, intentionality. Like, be intentional with your time. If it's your husband, if it's the girls that you're coaching, whatever, just because we only have, a small amount. So once again, seriously, thank you. It was awesome. Everything went well. So just anytime we can help, I always say this, I always text you this, like, however we can help, let us know. And I just want to continue just to pour in and to help, with the high school, with the kids, and, be there, because once again, it's one of the most important things that we can do. So guys, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And I'm going to say this, if you're a teacher out there in a different community and you want this brought to your high school, please reach out, because it's actually a goal of mine to get this into more of our schools in around here. And I'd sponsor it for a school that wasn't even around here, just because I know the impact that it can make. So if you're watching this on YouTube, if you don't mind, hit the subscribe button and leave any comments, ask any questions, and we'll answer them back. Thank you.